What if I told you that one man's visions, filled with strange creatures, apocalyptic battles, and breathtaking promises, still hold the power to change your life today? The story of the prophet Ezekiel is more than just ancient scripture. It's a roadmap for navigating chaos, finding purpose, and embracing transformation. Yet, Ezekiel's journey wasn't easy. He faced visions that defied explanation, carried burdens that would crush most of us, and delivered messages that no one wanted to hear. Sound familiar? Sometimes life feels like that, doesn't it? Uncertain, overwhelming, and full of questions no one seems able to answer. But here's the twist. Within these challenges lies a hidden key. Ezekiel's story isn't just about what happened to him, it's about what can happen to you. What if you could see beyond the surface of your struggles and discover a plan, a purpose, a vision for renewal that's already waiting for you? Ezekiel's journey offers that kind of clarity, blending moments of awe-inspiring revelation with practical lessons for overcoming adversity. So, whether you're searching for meaning, seeking hope in a broken world, or simply curious about one of history's most fascinating prophets, Ezekiel's story will challenge you, inspire you, and leave you with one burning question. What's your vision for the life you're meant to live? And hey, if this resonates with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's explore these incredible stories together. The story begins by the river Chabar, a place of exile, where the prophet Ezekiel found himself in a moment that would define his destiny. Picture this: a seemingly ordinary day transforms into the extraordinary as the heavens open before him. Can you imagine such a scene? The clouds part, light floods the horizon, and Ezekiel is suddenly drawn into a vision of God's glory. This wasn't just an experience to recount, it was the kind of encounter that leaves a mark on your very soul. If you think about it, moments like this often come when we least expect them, right? Perhaps in the midst of our struggles, we, too, might find clarity if we're open to it. As Ezekiel stood there, overwhelmed by the divine, he wasn't simply a passive observer. No, this was a calling, a summons to step into a life that demanded courage and resolve. The prophet Ezekiel, an ordinary man, was chosen for an extraordinary purpose. Have you ever considered that you might be in your own Chabar moment? Maybe the challenges you're facing are shaping you for something greater. Like Ezekiel, the key is recognizing the opportunity, even if it feels overwhelming at first. But here's the thing about a calling. It doesn't come with a detailed map or easy answers. Ezekiel's journey began with awe, but it was also filled with questions. What would this vision mean? How would he fulfill the task ahead? These are questions we all face, aren't they? When life pulls us toward something bigger, it often feels like standing at the edge of the unknown. Yet, it's in that uncertainty that we begin to see glimpses of our purpose, just as Ezekiel was about to uncover his. The vision that Ezekiel experienced next was nothing short of breathtaking, an encounter with celestial beings unlike anything ever described. Imagine this: creatures with 4 faces, each representing something profound: the man, the lion, the ox, and the eagle. Their wings stretched out majestically, touching each other as they moved in perfect harmony. What could this mean? It's as if the prophet Ezekiel was shown a glimpse of divine complexity and perfection, where every detail carries a purpose, reminding us that even in the chaos of life, there is an order beyond what we can comprehend. The wheels were perhaps the most intriguing part of Ezekiel's vision. These weren't ordinary wheels. They were full of eyes, symbolizing omniscience and the ability to see all things. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever felt like every part of your life is being observed, not with judgment, but with understanding? That's the message here. Nothing escapes divine awareness. These wheels moved in any direction without turning, symbolizing mobility and adaptability, qualities that resonate deeply with the challenges of modern life. How often do we need to move forward, no matter the obstacles, trusting that there's a guiding hand? And let's not forget the fire, blazing, radiating power, yet controlled. It's a stark reminder of God's purity and might. This vision wasn't meant to frighten Ezekiel but to prepare him. Sometimes, life brings us encounters that shake us to our core, doesn't it? Yet, in those moments, there's an underlying purpose, pushing us toward growth. Have you ever faced something that felt overwhelming, only to realize later it was shaping you into someone stronger? The symbolism here isn't just for Ezekiel. Think about the lion, representing strength and courage. How often do we need to channel that same bravery in our daily lives? Or the eagle, a symbol of vision and freedom, qualities we all yearn for as we navigate our paths. The ox brings to mind patience and resilience. And the man? Well, that's you and me, grounded in humanity, yet striving for something higher. This vision isn't just a story. It's a blueprint for understanding how these traits intertwine in our own journeys. Ezekiel stood in awe, yet he wasn't paralyzed by fear. Instead, this encounter fueled him with a sense of purpose. When was the last time you felt genuinely inspired by something beyond yourself? Perhaps it was a conversation, a book, or even a moment of solitude. The prophet Ezekiel's experience reminds us to stay open to the extraordinary in the ordinary. What if every day held the potential for a revelation, if only we dared to look deeper? Moreover, the movement of these beings and wheels speaks to a profound truth. Progress isn't always linear. They moved seamlessly, adapting to the flow. Isn't that how life works? We may plan one path, but often we're redirected, sometimes in ways we can't explain. Yet, as Ezekiel saw, there's always a greater purpose guiding those shifts. Could it be that your own detours are leading you somewhere better? The eyes on the wheels also remind us of mindfulness, being present and aware. In our fast-paced world, how often do we truly see what's in front of us? Ezekiel's vision challenges us to pay attention, to notice the divine in the details. Whether it's a kind word from a stranger or the beauty of a sunset, there's always something greater at play, waiting to be recognized. Ezekiel's celestial vision wasn't just an isolated event. It was a call to align himself with the divine plan. But alignment requires action, doesn't it? Think about the steps you can take in your own life to find that alignment. Perhaps it's as simple as journaling your thoughts or seeking out wisdom in Scripture. The prophet Ezekiel's encounter shows us that clarity often comes when we're willing to take that first step. And yet, this vision was just the beginning. As awe-inspiring as it was, it served to prepare Ezekiel for what lay ahead, a mission that would demand unwavering faith and resilience. Much like these celestial beings, he would need to embody strength, vision, and adaptability. But how does one carry out such a calling? That's where the journey continues, and Ezekiel's next steps reveal the answer. From the moment Ezekiel was addressed as Son of Man, it became clear that his mission was deeply personal yet universally significant. The title wasn't just a label. It was a constant reminder of his humanity and the weight of his task. Imagine being called to warn an entire nation, a rebellious people resistant to change. That's what Ezekiel faced, an audience that didn't want to hear the truth. Yet, isn't that the essence of a prophet's role? To speak boldly, even when the message isn't popular. How often do we hesitate to confront difficult truths in our own lives? Ezekiel's mission began with a symbolic act that was both profound and deeply personal: eating a scroll. This wasn't just any scroll. It was filled with words of lamentation and woe. Yet, as Ezekiel consumed it, he described the taste as sweet like honey. Think about that contrast. How often does something challenging in life turn out to be a blessing in disguise? This act symbolized the bittersweet nature of carrying God's word. The sweetness came from knowing the truth, while the bitterness came from the burden of delivering it. What truths in your own life carry a similar duality? As Ezekiel digested the scroll, both physically and spiritually, he was being prepared for the task ahead. The act of consuming it was more than symbolic. It was transformative. He was internalizing the message, making it part of his very being. This teaches us an important lesson. To truly embrace a calling, we must first let it shape us. It's like preparing for a challenge. Whether it's studying for a career change or committing to personal growth, the first step is letting the message sink in. But the mission wasn't without its challenges. Ezekiel was warned from the beginning. The people he was sent to would be stubborn and resistant. They had hearts of stone, as the scriptures say. Have you ever tried to share advice with someone who just wouldn't listen? Frustrating, isn't it? Yet, Ezekiel was called to persist, not because of the people's response, but because obedience to his mission mattered more than the outcome. This is a reminder to all of us. Success isn't always about immediate results, but about staying true to our purpose. Ezekiel's task required resilience, and his strength came from divine assurance. God promised to make Ezekiel's own resolve as firm as a diamond. Imagine being given that kind of inner strength. It's not about being unbreakable in a physical sense, but about cultivating the kind of resolve that keeps you going when things get tough. Where in your life could you use that kind of resilience right now? Maybe it's in your relationships, your career, or even in pursuing a dream you've put on hold. The scroll also represented something else: the power of words. Words have the ability to create, heal, or even challenge. Ezekiel wasn't just delivering any message. He was wielding the words of God, words meant to awaken a nation. In today's world, words still hold immense power. How often do we use them to build others up rather than tear them down? Imagine the impact if we approached every conversation with the intent to inspire and uplift. Even as Ezekiel prepared for his mission, he must have felt the weight of the responsibility. Yet, he didn't shy away. This reminds us of the importance of stepping into discomfort when it's aligned with our purpose. It's like starting a new venture or taking a leap of faith. Scary at first, but often the most rewarding decisions in life are those that push us beyond our comfort zones. One of the most relatable aspects of Ezekiel's mission was the need for perseverance. He wasn't guaranteed immediate results or even gratitude from those he sought to help. Isn't life often the same? We invest in relationships, careers, or personal growth, not knowing if our efforts will pay off. Yet, like Ezekiel, we're called to trust the process. Where in your life are you being called to persevere, even when the outcome seems uncertain? Ezekiel's mission as a prophet was only beginning, and the challenges he faced would demand more than just courage. They would require creativity and symbolic acts to capture the attention of a distracted nation. But how does one turn a stubborn heart toward truth? Ezekiel's next steps reveal the surprising answer. Ezekiel's prophetic journey took a dramatic turn when he began performing symbolic acts to convey God's message to the people. These weren't random gestures. They were vivid, often shocking, displays meant to capture attention and stir reflection. Imagine a man lying on his side for hundreds of days, seemingly without explanation. What would you think if you saw this in your own neighborhood? That's exactly what Ezekiel did. 390 days on his left side and 40 days on his right, each day symbolizing a year of Israel and Judah's iniquity. It wasn't just a spectacle, it was a living parable. This act wasn't merely for shock value, it carried a profound message. Each day Ezekiel lay there, he bore the weight of the people's sins, a powerful reminder of the consequences of rebellion. Can you imagine the discipline and endurance required for such a task? In our own lives, we're often called to endure challenging seasons that might seem strange to others, but they carry deep meaning for our personal growth or the benefit of those around us. How often do you find yourself in situations that require patience, even when the purpose isn't immediately clear? Another striking example was Ezekiel's preparation and consumption of food cooked over cow dung. This wasn't a bizarre dietary choice, but a symbol of the scarcity and humiliation that would come with Jerusalem's siege. Food, a basic human need, became a vehicle for communicating the severity of the people's situation. Think about it. How often do we overlook the importance of the everyday things we take for granted? This act challenges us to reflect on what sustains us, not just physically but spiritually and emotionally. Ezekiel's acts also had an element of storytelling, a kind of visual narrative that bypassed words. For instance, he enacted the siege of Jerusalem by building a miniature model of the city and surrounding it with siege works. This wasn't a child's play, it was a poignant demonstration of what was to come. Have you ever used creative ways to make a point, whether through art, storytelling, or an unconventional approach? Ezekiel's creativity shows us that sometimes the best way to communicate a message is through action rather than words. One of the most profound symbolic acts was when Ezekiel shaved his head and divided the hair into thirds. Each portion represented a different fate for the people. Some would die by plague, others by the sword, and the rest scattered to the winds. Hair, a personal and cultural symbol, became a stark metaphor for the fragility of life. This act prompts us to consider, what are the symbols in our own lives that carry deep meaning? Perhaps it's a family heirloom, a photograph, or even a routine that anchors us. Ezekiel's symbolic acts weren't easy tasks. They required immense courage and an unshakable sense of purpose. It's not easy to stand out or risk misunderstanding, but sometimes that's exactly what's needed to wake people up. Think about the moments in your life when you've had to take a stand, even if it made you uncomfortable. Ezekiel's example reminds us that boldness, paired with purpose, can create a lasting impact. These acts also teach us about the power of persistence. Ezekiel didn't perform these signs for a single day or week. Some lasted for months. It's a reminder that meaningful change often requires sustained effort. How many times do we give up too soon, thinking our actions aren't making a difference? Ezekiel shows us that consistency, even in the face of resistance, is what brings about transformation. The people who witnessed Ezekiel's acts might have been confused, amused, or even angered, but they couldn't ignore him. That's the beauty of symbolic action. It forces engagement. Whether in leadership, relationships, or personal goals, there's a lesson here. If you want to make an impact, find a way to be heard. What creative methods could you use to communicate your own ideas more effectively? Ezekiel's symbolic acts set the stage for a deeper understanding of the consequences of disobedience and the hope of restoration. But as we move forward, the scope of his message broadens beyond Israel, revealing a divine justice that spans nations. How does one reconcile the personal with the universal? That's where Ezekiel's journey leads next. Ezekiel's role as a prophet didn't stop at Israel's borders. His voice carried messages of judgment for the nations surrounding God's chosen people. These pronouncements weren't arbitrary. They revealed a divine justice that transcended geographical and cultural boundaries. Think about it. Ezekiel spoke against nations like Ammon, Moab, Edom, and Tyre, showing that no one was exempt from accountability. It's a humbling reminder that power, wealth, or alliances can't shield us from the consequences of our actions. Have you ever witnessed situations where justice seemed inevitable, no matter how powerful the wrongdoer? Take the prophecy against Tyre, for instance. Tyre was a prosperous trading hub, its wealth unmatched in the region. Yet, Ezekiel predicted its downfall, likening it to a shipwrecked vessel sinking beneath the waves. The message was clear: arrogance and misplaced trust in material wealth lead to ruin. In today's context, it's easy to draw parallels. How often do we see individuals or even corporations rise to power, only to fall due to greed or hubris? Ezekiel's prophecy warns us to ground ourselves in values, not vanity. Ezekiel's words for Moab and Ammon also carried weight. These nations mocked Israel during its hardships, reveling in their neighbors' misfortune. Isn't that a familiar scenario? Think of times when people take pleasure in the struggles of others. Ezekiel's prophecy condemned such attitudes, reminding us that empathy and humility are far more enduring than schadenfreude. It challenges us to consider: how do we respond when we see others falter? Are we compassionate, or do we stand on the sidelines, indifferent or smug? The judgment against Edom was particularly striking, rooted in betrayal. Edom, a nation with familial ties to Israel, turned against its kin during a vulnerable moment. Betrayal is a theme that resonates universally, doesn't it? Whether in friendships, family, or business, the pain of being let down by someone close is profound. Ezekiel's prophecy speaks to the value of loyalty and the cost of breaking trust. It's a reminder to guard our relationships and to act with integrity, even when it's inconvenient. Perhaps the most vivid condemnation was aimed at Egypt, a superpower of the ancient world. Pharaoh, in his pride, believed himself to be invincible, comparing himself to a mighty river that nourished the land. Ezekiel's prophecy shattered this illusion, declaring Egypt's eventual fall. This serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of self-idolatry. Have you ever met someone, or been in a situation yourself, where overconfidence led to downfall? Ezekiel's message invites us to remain humble, recognizing that no one is beyond the reach of accountability. The judgments weren't merely punitive, they were also instructive. Each nation's downfall was a lesson in the consequences of pride, greed, and disregard for others. But these messages weren't delivered with malice. They carried an underlying hope for repentance. It's a powerful reminder that even when we stray, there's always a path back, if we're willing to take it. What paths of restoration might you need to consider in your own life? Ezekiel's proclamations also highlighted the interconnectedness of nations. What happened to one often affected the others. Isn't that still true today? Whether it's global economics, environmental issues, or social movements, the ripple effects are undeniable. This interdependence calls us to act responsibly, not just for ourselves but for the broader community. What actions could you take today to contribute positively to the world around you? These judgments also underscore the concept of justice as balance. For every wrong committed, there was a consequence, but it wasn't about punishment for its own sake. It was about setting things right. This resonates with the idea of personal accountability. How often do we reflect on the impact of our choices, both good and bad. Ezekiel's words encourage us to seek alignment with higher principles, ensuring our actions contribute to justice rather than imbalance. While Ezekiel's pronouncements against the nations were sobering, they also set the stage for a broader narrative. The story wasn't just about judgment, it was about restoration and renewal. As the prophet Ezekiel turned his attention back to Israel, a new vision began to emerge, one filled with hope and the promise of revival. What could possibly restore a nation that seemed beyond repair? That's the question his next vision seeks to answer. Ezekiel's vision of the Valley of Dry Bones is perhaps one of the most powerful images in prophetic literature. Picture it, a desolate valley, filled with lifeless bones, scattered and brittle, a scene of utter hopelessness. This was more than a vision, it was a metaphor for Israel's spiritual and national state at the time. Have you ever faced a moment in your life where everything seemed lost, where the pieces of your world felt too scattered to ever come back together? Ezekiel's vision reminds us that even in the most dire situations, restoration is possible. As Ezekiel gazed upon the valley, he heard God's voice ask, "Can these bones live?" It's a question that echoes through time, challenging us to consider the seemingly impossible. Ezekiel's response was both humble and profound. "O Lord God, you know." This acknowledgement of divine sovereignty is a powerful lesson for us. Sometimes, when faced with insurmountable challenges, the best thing we can do is admit our limitations and trust in a power greater than ourselves. What areas of your life might benefit from surrendering control and allowing restoration to unfold? Then came the command, "Prophesy to these bones." As Ezekiel spoke, something miraculous began to happen. The bones came together, sinews formed, and flesh covered them, but there was still no life. Isn't that a striking image? Sometimes we see progress, pieces coming together, but the spark of life, the true essence of transformation, is still missing. It's a reminder that restoration isn't just about external fixes. It's about a deeper, spiritual renewal. Have you ever experienced a moment where the external circumstances improved, but something internal still needed healing? The vision didn't end there. God instructed Ezekiel to prophesy again, this time to the breath, calling it to enter the lifeless bodies. When the breath came, the bones rose up as a vast army, alive and whole. The breath, representing God's Spirit, was the key to true revival. This teaches us an important principle. No matter how much we rebuild externally, without the Spirit, without purpose and vitality, our efforts remain incomplete. How often do we focus on fixing the surface, forgetting the importance of what lies within? This valley wasn't just about Israel. It was about all of us. The dry bones symbolize those times when we feel disconnected, lifeless, or without direction. Yet, the vision offers hope. No matter how broken we feel, restoration is possible when we're open to transformation. Think about a time when you thought all was lost, only to find a new beginning. What helped you rise again? Perhaps it was faith, community, or an unexpected opportunity. Ezekiel's vision also introduces the concept of a new covenant, a promise from God to give His people a new heart and a new spirit. This wasn't just about restoring what was lost, it was about creating something better. It's a powerful reminder that restoration doesn't mean going back to how things were. Instead, it's about moving forward into something even greater. Where in your life could you embrace this idea of transformation, rather than simply trying to recover what's been lost? The Valley of Dry Bones also highlights the importance of speaking life into situations. Ezekiel's prophecy brought change because he spoke words of faith and obedience. How often do we underestimate the power of our words? Whether it's encouraging someone else or reframing our own thoughts, what we say can shape reality. What words of life could you speak over your own challenges today? The vision wasn't just about individuals, it was about a nation rising together. The bones didn't stand alone, they formed a unified army. This speaks to the power of community in the process of restoration. When we come together with a shared purpose, the impact is multiplied. Are there areas in your life where collaboration and community could play a role in your own revival? Ezekiel's vision of the valley ends with a promise. God will bring His people back to their land, not just physically, but spiritually. It's a picture of hope, of a future where brokenness gives way to wholeness. Yet, this restoration isn't an end in itself. It's the foundation for something even greater, a renewed relationship with God and the fulfillment of His promises. What could this mean for the journey ahead? Ezekiel's next vision reveals a glimpse of what this restored future might look like. Ezekiel's vision of the temple is a breathtaking display of precision and purpose. Imagine standing before an angelic figure holding a measuring rod, meticulously outlining every detail of this magnificent structure. This wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of restored worship and God's renewed presence among His people. Every measurement, every chamber, every doorway carried significance. It's a reminder that in life, details matter. How often do we overlook the small things, forgetting that they form the foundation for something greater? The temple described by Ezekiel was unlike anything seen before, perfectly symmetrical, grand, and sacred. It wasn't merely a place for rituals. It was a representation of divine order. The care with which it was measured and described shows us that worship isn't just about grand gestures. It's about intentionality. Have you ever considered the role of intentionality in your own spiritual practices or daily routines? Whether it's prayer, reflection, or simply showing kindness, the smallest actions can carry profound meaning when done with purpose. One striking feature of Ezekiel's temple was the river that flowed from it. This wasn't an ordinary stream. It grew deeper and stronger the farther it went, bringing life to everything it touched. Trees lined its banks, bearing fruit year-round, and the waters even turned salty seas fresh. Can you picture such a transformative power? This river symbolizes the life-giving presence of God, reminding us that true restoration flows outward, impacting not just us but those around us. Where in your life could you create such a ripple effect, bringing renewal to others? The temple's design also emphasized separation and sanctity. Certain areas were accessible only to priests, symbolizing the importance of preparation and purity in approaching God. This isn't about exclusion. It's about reverence. How often do we pause to truly prepare ourselves before engaging in something meaningful? Whether it's a spiritual act or a significant life decision, taking time to reflect and prepare can make all the difference. Ezekiel's vision of the temple also carried a promise. God's glory would return. For a people who had experienced exile and felt abandoned, this was a powerful assurance. Have you ever felt like you've lost something essential, only to find it again in a deeper, more profound way? This promise reminds us that even when things seem bleak, renewal and reconnection are always possible. What steps could you take today to rediscover what you've lost, whether it's a sense of purpose, joy, or faith? The temple wasn't just about physical space. It was about relationships. Its restoration symbolized a renewed covenant between God and His people. This teaches us that restoration isn't just about structures or routines. It's about rebuilding trust and connection. Think about your own relationships. Are there any that need mending? Ezekiel's vision challenges us to prioritize reconciliation and community. Another fascinating detail was the gates of the temple. They were always open, facing east, welcoming God's presence. This openness invites us to reflect on how we approach our own lives. Are we open to new opportunities, to growth, and to divine inspiration? Sometimes, the hardest step is simply being willing to receive. Where in your life could you create more openness, whether in your mindset or in your actions? The vision of the temple also highlights balance, a perfect blend of structure and spirit. It wasn't just a place to follow rules. It was a space filled with life and vibrancy. This balance is something we can all strive for. How often do we focus too much on one aspect of life, work, relationships, or personal goals, while neglecting the others? Ezekiel's temple reminds us that true wholeness comes from harmony. As Ezekiel's vision of the temple unfolded, it became clear that this wasn't just about the past or present. It was a glimpse into a future where restoration wasn't merely physical but spiritual and communal. Yet, this vision wasn't the final chapter. Ezekiel's journey leads to a prophecy of an apocalyptic battle, where the ultimate sovereignty of God would be revealed. What could such a battle mean for the world, and for us? Ezekiel's journey teaches us something profound. No matter how scattered, broken, or lifeless things may seem, restoration is always possible. His visions weren't just stories. They were calls to action, invitations to reflect on where we are and where we're headed. So, let me ask you, what part of your life feels like that valley of dry bones? What's the one step you can take today to bring breath and life back into it? Maybe it's reaching out to someone you've lost touch with, starting a new habit, or simply allowing yourself to hope again. But here's the catch. Understanding isn't enough. Change comes through action. Ezekiel didn't just see visions. he lived them, embodying the message he was called to share. What about you? Are you ready to take what you've learned and make it real in your own life? Whether it's embracing resilience like Ezekiel, speaking life into your challenges, or trusting in a purpose greater than yourself, the time to act is now. And if this journey through Ezekiel's story inspired you, let's keep exploring together. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the incredible lessons ahead. Don't forget to leave a like if this spoke to you. It's a small action that makes a big difference. Together, let's uncover more stories that not only inspire but transform.